I never thought I'd hear my own daughter say those words about me. But there she was, standing in front of a judge in a courtroom. Eyes cold, voice steady. My mother doesn't remember anything anymore. She's confused, she can't make decisions for herself. For a moment, the entire room tilted. Not because she lied, but because I realized she wanted the court to declare me incompetent. My child. My own flesh and blood. And in that instant, something inside me snapped awake. Because if she wanted a frail, forgetful mother, she had forgotten who I really was. My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 68 years old, and trust me, I remember everything. I've lived my whole life in Cleveland, Ohio. A quiet neighborhood, maple trees in every yard, a porch swing I still sit on with my morning coffee. I worked nearly 30 years as a librarian. Orderly shelves, familiar faces, the soft rustle of pages becoming the rhythm of my days. My life wasn't perfect, but it was calm, predictable, steady. Until last spring. Until my daughter, Emily, decided I was forgetting too much. At first, it seemed innocent. Gentle reminders, a worried tone, exaggerated concern. Mom, you forgot your dentist appointment again. Mom, you keep misplacing your phone. Mom, you didn't lock the door yesterday. I brushed it off. I'm almost 70. Misplacing things comes with the territory. But nothing could have prepared me for what was actually happening. Emily is my only daughter. I raised her alone after her father passed when she was 12. She was my world, bright, ambitious, sometimes stubborn. She grew up, became a real estate agent, moved to Columbus, got married, and slowly drifted. But she always came back when she needed something. And last year, she came back with a plan. It began with money. Doesn't every family disaster? Emily insisted on helping me organize my finances. Mom, it's just easier if I handle the paperwork. You deserve to relax. She said it with that daughterly smile, the one I always wanted to trust. At first, I allowed it, until I noticed small withdrawals from my bank account. Then larger ones. She said I must have forgotten authorizing them. Forgotten. She used that word a lot. One afternoon, when I confronted her, she leaned back in my living room chair like she owned the place. Mom, you're getting older. You don't remember things the way you used to. Let me take care of this. Her tone wasn't loving. It was rehearsed. And something inside me tightened, an old instinct, the same one that helped me raise her alone through grief and bills and sleepless nights. I'm not helpless, I told her. But she only smiled, slow and strange. I know, Mom. That's why I'm here. In May, I received a letter from the county courthouse. A petition filed by my own daughter, claiming I was experiencing cognitive decline and required a court-appointed guardian. A guardian? For me. I remember the paper trembling in my hands. Anger? Fear? Heartbreak? I still can't tell. She hadn't talked to me, hadn't asked me, hadn't even warned me. She simply filed it, as if I were already gone, as if my mind belonged to her. That night, I sat alone on my porch, the sun sinking behind the houses, cicadas humming like a warning. I kept whispering to myself, why would she do this? And slowly, painfully, the truth pried itself open. If the court granted her guardianship, she would control everything. My house, my savings, my medical decisions, my future. To the world, it looked like she cared. But I finally saw it. This wasn't concern. It was greed. The morning of the hearing, I wore my best navy blue coat, the one I saved for important moments. My hands were steady. My steps were firm. Because I wasn't walking into that courtroom as a confused old woman. I was walking in as a mother betrayed. When Emily stood and spoke, calmly, confidently, boldly lying about me, I didn't flinch. I waited. And when the judge turned toward me and said, Mrs. Hayes, do you have anything you'd like to say? I smiled. Because I remembered everything. And I was ready to speak. The courtroom felt colder the moment I stood up. Not the kind of cold you feel in your bones. The kind that settles in your chest when you realize your own child wants to erase your voice. I remember gripping the wooden table in front of me, not because I felt weak, but because I needed to anchor myself in reality. I wasn't dreaming. My daughter had truly tried to take my life, piece by piece, while I was still living it. The judge, Judge Wallace, a gray-haired man in his early 70s, adjusted his glasses as he looked at me. "Mrs. Hayes," he said gently, "you may respond to the petition." I took a slow breath. I made sure my voice didn't shake. "Your Honor," I began, "my daughter claims I don't remember anything." I paused long enough for Emily to shift uncomfortably beside her attorney. "But I remember enough to know she has withdrawn over $18,000 from my accounts without my permission." A murmur rippled through the room. Emily's attorney immediately objected. "Your Honor," the respondent is confused. "Those withdrawals were authorized. Mrs. Hayes has difficulty recalling recent." I raised a hand. "Actually, there's a folder in my purse with every bank statement for the past 6 months, and a copy of the police report I filed last week." Silence. Heavy, stunned silence. Because that was the part one hadn't told Emily. A week before the hearing, I had done something I never expected I'd have to do. I went to the Cleveland Police Department and filed a report of unauthorized transactions. The young officer who took my statement kept giving me these soft, pitying looks, the kind usually reserved for lost pets or people who forget their addresses. "Ma'am," he said gently, "is it possible someone close to you had permission? A family member, maybe?" His tone made my jaw tighten. "I am old," I told him. "I am not naive." I remembered his eyebrows lifting. I remembered the exact moment he realized I wasn't confused. I was determined. He helped me gather everything: printed statements, transaction timelines, itemized withdrawals. One thing the librarian in me never lost is the ability to file, organize, and document with precision. So when I slapped the folder onto the courtroom table, it wasn't anger. It was proof. Emily's face drained of color. Her lips pressed into a thin line, a line I recognized from when she was a teenager and got caught lying about where she was after school. "Mom," she whispered, leaning toward me, "why would you go to the police? You could have talked to me." I turned to her, meeting her eyes that once looked at me with love, excitement, gratitude. "Because you didn't talk to me," I said quietly. "You went straight to the court." For a moment, Emily looked like a stranger wearing my daughter's face, and that hurt more than anything. Judge Wallace began asking me questions. Not rapid fire, not harsh, just careful. "Mrs. Hayes, can you tell me about your daily routine?" I described everything, from my morning coffee routine to my Tuesday knitting group, my Thursday volunteer shift at the library, and even the grocery list I keep taped to my refrigerator. He asked for dates. I gave them accurately. He asked about appointments. I recited them, without hesitation. He asked about the withdrawals. I explained every one, down to the hour I discovered them. Emily's attorney shifted nervously. Emily kept smoothing her skirt, her breathing shallow. The judge stopped writing for a moment and looked at me over his glasses. "Mrs. Hayes, have you noticed any changes in your memory recently?" I swallowed. Because this was the moment that scared me the most. Not the legal battle. Not the accusations. Not the betrayal. But the truth. "Yes," I said softly. "I forget small things sometimes. Names. Dates. Where I put my reading glasses. But I do not forget who I am. And I do not forget when someone tries to hurt me." My voice didn't shake. Not once. Judge Wallace leaned back, thinking. The courtroom felt suspended, like the air itself was waiting for his reaction. Finally, he spoke. "Mrs. Hayes appears fully competent. In fact, unusually clear." Relief washed through me, but only for a second, because the judge wasn't finished. He turned to Emily. "Ms. Hayes, I will now ask you a question. What exactly was your intention in filing this petition for guardianship?" Emily froze, and I watched the first crack appear in the perfect story she'd crafted. The courtroom became so quiet you could hear the buzz of the old fluorescent lights above us. Emily didn't answer right away.
She didn't blink.
She just stared at the judge as if she could somehow will the moment away. Ms. Hayes, Judge Wallace repeated, what was your intention in filing for guardianship over your mother? Emily swallowed. Her eyes darted to her attorney, who gave her a subtle nod, permission to speak. She straightened her back, lifted her chin slightly, and began with a practiced softness. Your Honor, my mom has been struggling. She forgets appointments, repeats stories, leaves the stove on. I do not leave the stove on. I interjected before I could stop myself. The judge held up a hand gently toward me. Mrs. Hayes, you'll have an opportunity to respond. Emily continued, her voice now trembling. Whether from fear, guilt, or embarrassment, I couldn't tell. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was trying to protect her. The judge's eyebrows lifted slightly. By withdrawing thousands of dollars from her account? Emily visibly flinched. I needed the money temporarily. I planned to put it back. That was the moment her voice cracked. And the courtroom finally saw what I had sensed for months. Her life was falling apart, and she wanted to use mine to fix it. The judge leaned forward. Put it back from where, Ms. Hayes? Emily looked down at her hands. She was rubbing the edge of her engagement ring, something she'd done since she was 16 whenever she felt exposed. My husband lost his job 8 months ago, she whispered. We were behind on rent. Bills kept piling up. I tried to keep everything together, but it was getting impossible. Her attorney didn't stop her. He knew this was the only strategy left, raw honesty, or whatever version of it Emily was capable of. So, Judge Wallace said softly, you chose to borrow money from your mother. She nodded, and then he continued, you attempted to gain full guardianship of her so you could access her assets legally and permanently? Emily's eyes shot up, wide and panicked. No, it wasn't like that. She struggled for words. I just needed stability. Something secure. I thought if I was handling her affairs it would make things easier. Easier for whom? The judge asked. Silence again. This time, it weighed heavier. For years, I had blamed myself whenever Emily drifted away. I thought maybe I hadn't given her enough. Maybe she needed more attention, more guidance, more comfort. A mother's guilt is a stubborn thing. But standing there, listening to her excuses unravel, I realized the truth. She didn't come to help me. She came to use me. The judge finally turned to me. Mrs. Hayes, you may respond now. I rose again, my palms flat on the table. But this time, the tremble wasn't fear, it was resolve. Your Honor, I began, I know my daughter has been struggling, and I'm not angry that she needed help. I would have given it to her, gladly, if she had simply asked. Emily looked up sharply, eyes glistening. But, I continued, she didn't ask. She took. And when she feared I might question her, she tried to take everything else, my independence, my home, my future. My voice grew steadier with every word. I forget things sometimes, yes. I am 68. I am not the woman I was at 30 or 40. But I am still here. My mind is still my own, and I deserve the dignity of making my own choices. A few people in the courtroom nodded quietly. Emily looked down again. And I added, my voice softer. This isn't the first time Emily has panicked when life becomes difficult. Emily's head jerked up. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to dig into old wounds. But honesty was the only way to protect myself now. When she was 17, I continued. She forged my signature on a college summer program because she didn't want to admit she'd missed the deadline. When she was 25, she took a loan in my name because she didn't want her husband to know she had maxed out her credit card. Emily whispered, Mom, don't do this. But I forgave her every time. Every single time. Because she was my daughter. And I always believed she would outgrow the fear, the lies, the shortcuts. I took a breath. But some lessons she never learned. Judge Wallace finally set his pen down. I've heard enough, he said. My heart stopped. Emily's hands clasped tightly together. Her attorney leaned in, bracing for the worst. The judge looked at both of us before delivering his verdict. Mrs. Hayes is clearly competent to handle her own affairs. A wave of relief swept through me, but it wasn't over. However, he added, turning toward my daughter, there are concerns regarding Ms. Hayes' financial actions, and I intend to address them. Emily froze. And that was the moment she realized this was no longer about guardianship. It was about consequences. For several seconds after the judge spoke, no one moved. Not Emily, not her attorney, not even the court clerk who had been typing nonstop since the hearing began. It was as if time itself stopped, to let the truth settle into every corner of that courtroom. Judge Wallace cleared his throat. Before I give my final ruling, he said, I want full transparency from both parties. His gaze shifted to Emily first. Ms. Hayes, are there any other financial activities involving your mother's accounts that have not been disclosed today? Emily's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her hands tightened in her lap. The judge waited. Ms. Hayes, he repeated. Finally, her voice emerged thin, shaky. There might have been one other withdrawal. I closed my eyes. Of course there was. How much? Judge Wallace pressed. Emily swallowed hard. $5,000. My breath caught. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. $5,000.
Gone.
Quietly. Secretly. Ms. Hayes, the judge said firmly, did your mother authorize that withdrawal? No, she whispered. And why did you take it? Emily rubbed her temples, as if the truth physically pained her. My husband and I, she paused, steadying herself. We were facing eviction. I thought I could fix it before Mom noticed. I wasn't trying to hurt her. She choked on the words. I didn't know what else to do. It was the closest thing to honesty I had heard from her in years. But even that didn't soften the sting, because she did know what else to do. She could have knocked on my door. She could have picked up the phone. She could have simply asked me for help. But instead, she stole from me, and then tried to take control of my entire life. When the judge asked if I wanted to respond, I didn't stand this time. My knees suddenly felt too heavy. I stayed seated, hands trembling slightly on my lap. Your Honor, I began. I didn't raise Emily to be perfect. I knew she would make mistakes. But I raised her to tell the truth, to take responsibility, to come to me when she needed something. My throat tightened. Instead, my daughter treated me like a burden, like an obstacle, like someone she needed to push aside. Emily's eyes filled, her mascara smudging. She didn't wipe her tears. Maybe for the first time in the entire hearing, she had nothing to hide behind. When I found the petition in my mailbox, I continued softly. I sat on my porch and thought, maybe she's right. Maybe I am slipping. Maybe I really am becoming a problem. A small gasp sounded from someone behind us. But then I realized. I looked right at Emily. The only person treating me like I'm disappearing is the one who benefits from me disappearing. Emily covered her mouth, sobbing now, quiet, but uncontrolled. And inside my chest something broke. Not because I was angry, but because I had never wanted to see my daughter cry like that. I never wanted this moment to exist at all. Judge Wallace leaned forward, voice steady but stern. Ms. Hayes, financial abuse of an elderly parent is a serious offense in the state of Ohio. Emily's sobs stopped instantly. She looked up, terrified. I'm not going to pursue criminal charges at this time, the judge continued, but I am ordering mandatory restitution. Every dollar taken must be returned. Additionally, I'm assigning a financial counselor to oversee the repayment plan. Emily's face crumpled. And finally, he added, you are to have no access to your mother's financial accounts moving forward, not without explicit written consent and verification. I felt a strange mix of relief and despair. Relief that I was finally protected. Despair that my daughter now needed legal orders to keep her from hurting me. When the hearing ended, people began to file out quietly. Some glanced at me with sympathy. Others avoided looking at Emily altogether. I stayed seated for a moment, letting the weight of everything settle. Emily stood a few feet away, staring at the ground as if she didn't know how to move. Mom, she whispered. A single word. Fragile. Broken.
I didn't know what to say.
Forgiveness felt too big. Anger felt too small. So I said nothing. I simply walked past her, my purse tucked close, my steps slow but steady. And as I reached the courtroom door, I realized the battle was over. But the wound wasn't. Because winning in court didn't mean I had my daughter back. It meant I had lost her in a way I never expected. The hallway outside the courtroom felt strangely bright, too bright after the heavy shadows of the hearing room. I leaned against the wall for a moment, letting the cool air settle my heartbeat. My hands were still trembling, though I wasn't sure if it was from relief or grief. Emily was still inside. I could hear her faint voice, raw, exhausted, talking to her attorney. But I didn't stay. I didn't have the strength for another confrontation or another apology that wasn't truly an apology. I walked out of the courthouse alone. And for the first time in my 68 years, I felt the weight and freedom of choosing myself. The days following the hearing were painfully quiet. At first, the silence felt like a punishment. For decades, Emily and I had spoken almost daily about groceries, weather, recipes, silly little things. Losing even the broken version of that routine felt like losing a limb. But slowly, something unexpected happened. The silence became peaceful. I started cooking again. Real meals, the kind that filled the house with warmth. I returned to my knitting group. They didn't ask for details, but they squeezed my hands gently. I went back to volunteering at the library, and for the first time in months, I didn't worry who might be going through my purse when I wasn't looking. I slept better. I breathed easier. And little by little, life began to feel like mine again. 3 weeks later, on a chilly Saturday morning, I found an envelope on my porch. My name was written in Emily's handwriting. My stomach twisted. I stood there for a full minute before I forced myself to pick it up. Inside was a letter, 3 pages long. The first line broke me. Mom, I'm ashamed of who I became. I sank into my porch chair and read every trembling word. She admitted everything. Not just the withdrawals, but the fear, the desperation, the resentment she'd been carrying for years, believing she had failed her marriage, failed her finances, failed her children. And in the middle of all that failure, she reached for the one thing she still felt she controlled. Me. Her letter ended with something I didn't expect. Please don't forgive me yet. I don't deserve that. But I want to earn my way back. Not to your money. To you. I held the letter against my chest. The tears came slowly, silently. Because even though the wound was still fresh, there was a small part of me that had been waiting, hoping, praying, not for an apology, but for my daughter to emerge from the wreckage. 2 more weeks passed before she finally called. Her voice was quiet, careful. Hi, Mom, it's me. I said nothing at first. I needed a second to steady my heart. Emily, I whispered. She cried. Not loud, dramatic crying, but the soft, painful tears of someone who has finally stopped lying to themselves. I'm going to counseling, she said. We're catching up on the restitution plan. And I'm working again. Part-time, but it's something. I felt myself breathe out. Not relief. Not forgiveness. Just release. I'm glad you're trying, I said gently. Then she added something that made my chest tighten. I don't expect us to be okay right away. I know I hurt you. I just hope you let me try to be better. The truth was, I didn't know what the future would look like. Trust isn't built in a courtroom or in a letter. It's built in the quiet moments afterward. But I also knew this. A door that stays closed forever doesn't heal anyone. So I said the only thing I could offer honestly. We'll take it one step at a time. Months passed. Slowly, cautiously, Emily began to rebuild. Not my trust, but her own character. She visited sometimes, never unannounced, always respectful. We talked about simple things at first, weather, books, recipes. And sometimes we talked about the hard things, the things we used to avoid. She didn't ask for money. She didn't touch my purse. She didn't try to manage my life. She simply showed up. And sometimes, that's the beginning of forgiveness. One crisp autumn afternoon, we sat on my porch steps, watching leaves fall onto the yard. Emily turned to me and whispered, Thank you for not giving up on me. I looked at her, really looked at her, and finally felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the naive hope of a mother who believes her child can do no wrong, but the grounded hope of a woman who survived betrayal and still found room in her heart to let love return in its own time. As I sit here today, telling this story, I am not the same woman who walked into that courtroom. I am stronger, clearer, wiser. My daughter tried to take my voice, but in court, in front of the judge, in front of everyone, I remembered everything. And remembering saved me. It didn't just protect my future. It helped Emily face her own truth. And somehow, in the most unexpected way, it gave us a chance to rebuild what almost shattered completely. One day at a time. One truth at a time. A new beginning, born from a painful ending.